I had never known such rage. Every part of my body felt red with anger. Blood of pure magma coursed through my veins. I threw the scroll onto the fire at my feet, the source of my anger. For Hermes had delivered it himself, with a huge bag of scrolls just like it. He dashed off quickly, before I could even read it. I now know why. He did not wish to see my reaction, or bear the brunt of my anger. For he had delivered the news of my husband, Zeus. It was an announcement and invitation both, to his wedding. Zeus was to marry Platea, some nymph, the child of a river god I cannot remember the name of. He dared to replace me, and I was furious. It all began when my plot to overthrow Zeus was foiled. Apollo and Poseidon, my co-conspirators, were stripped of their power, made to serve a king of Sparta, Laomedon. Zeus hung me in the skies from the golden rope that was used to trap him, and I stared into chaos. The beginning, the end, the absence of life, and yet, all life comes from it. Even we gods. I could not see what I had done. I did not want to accept that Zeus was right. He swore to me on our wedding night he would not take goddesses into his bed, and he has not. But I could not face the fact that none of the court supported me. Each wanted the throne for themselves. As I stared into chaos, my muscles strained by the ropes, I held onto my anger. I knew the only way to release myself from that prison was to swear to him, my husband, my king, my prisoner turned captor. There was no way out, but to swear upon Styx to never rise against Zeus. But I tried to think of one. For weeks, then months, I contemplated. My son, Hephaestus, even tried to free me once. Zeus threw him from the mountain before he could release just 1 foot. I tugged at the golden rope for the millionth time and whispered with a defeated sigh. Hermes, the winged boy, appeared but a second later. He floated in the air with a half smile on his face. Through my gritted teeth, I told him to bring Zeus. Summon Styx from the underworld and bring them both back. I was ready to end my punishment. A sudden burst of bright light appeared in the skies. As it dimmed, 2 figures came into view. Zeus, my husband, stood tall in the empty sky. A small part of Styx personified stood beside him. I made my vow, her hand placed upon my wrapped tied fist, to make the oath unbreakable. Zeus snapped his fingers and the bound ropes fell from my limbs. He caught me as I fell. The cool air transformed as he flew us from the skies to the throne room of Olympus, the halls of our home. Once my feet touched the floor, I leapt out of Zeus's arms, my fury not yet quenched. The punishment had fueled it all the more. My anger blinded me, my spite eager to continue the feud against him. After all we had been through, I had thought to remove him from the equation. For I could rule as well as he, but I did not think how I would keep it. And my co-conspirators were happy to claim my prize for themselves. My idiotic brother Poseidon and arrogant nephew Apollo. They played their part. They were good tools until they turned back on me. How could they think themselves worthy? How could they claim the crown when I did all the work? All the plans made were by my hand. At one point, we spoke about killing Zeus, but I refused. I could not. This was my mistake. I could not end him. My husband, my lover, my saviour. The first face I ever saw. The one who stopped the darkness and brought us all into the light. Poseidon acted as if he could, but I saw it in his eyes. We both could not kill our brother. We still owed him our lives. We could not take his, just his crown. To be the king, you should kill the king. To strike at the king, you cannot miss, and it should have been fatal. This coup, this plot, it was never destined to work. We did not have the guts to do what must be done, and I'm glad we did not. He is mine and I am his. I never wanted him dead. I could never destroy him. We were destined to be together, and I had lost sight of that. But so had he. Though hanged between the world and chaos, my anger only grew. It would ebb and wane between fires and ice. In between, I knew I could not go back to our old routine. My love, he tied me here. And even when the ropes were loosed and he released me, it was not enough. When Zeus brought me down and back to our home, I refused to look at him. I could not, for my hurt was too great and too raw. I had sworn to never rise again, but we could not go back to pretending. With all these years, I feel we have lost ourselves. We have lost the gods we were before the crown, before ruling made us who we are now. With all the vows and promises, and all the mortal women between, doubt had made home in my heart, right beside my love for him. And with every woman and every half-blooded bastard he had fathered, it had grown. My doubt overshadowed my love, so much so that it was hidden in darkness. I know now that we must rule together, that we cannot do it alone. He holds power and fear that I do not, yet he underestimates me. He squanders our marriage and the power that I have. He needs me too. I admitted my wrong when he stood before my tied-up body. I made my vow. I swore upon stakes. And what has he done for me? He released me and expected all to be well again. I promised not to rebel. I did not agree to be his wife again. He offered no apology to me, just facts, statements. No consideration to why I rose, why I was driven to it, why I was humiliated, why I was hurt, even when the ropes were undone. I did not stay to explain it to him. He did not deserve it. I was free. I left Olympus and I would not go back until Zeus had come to me first. He would bend. He would break. I need that. I need him to admit that he needs me as much as I need him. That we are still the Hera and Zeus of old. That he still loves me. That he forgives me. And that he will not replace me. Surely in my absence, all the court will have seen it now. How Zeus ruled without me, and the vacant space that they will have coveted for themselves. My place. I had done my part. Now he must do his. He would have to come to me.
Hera had left the palace, the court, and the mountain. I thought she needed space, her own time, Her anger was understandable. Embarrassment, humiliation, a bruised ego. Her plot had failed. Of course she needed time. I gave her plenty in the skies. Yet, when she was released and ran, she did not come back. In the past, even when in her deepest mood at me, she would return to her own chambers to rest. But this time, she was gone. Days turned to weeks, and there was no sign of her on the mountain. The court began to whisper. The Queen's absence was unprecedented. Never had she left her place like this. Rumors began of the Queen leaving the King. Me. No longer did they gossip at the spat between us. They did not speak to me of it at all. All talk stopped whenever I entered a room. The whispered jokes that usually came between the court were gone. Even the grand throne rooms, full of my family and bustling noise, it all fell silent at my approach. But this was no ordinary tiff. Thoughts spread that perhaps it was a full rupture. The paradigm at court had been shattered. The goddesses began to look at me again, their eyes held intent. The gods looked on me with pity and fear in the edges. Is the lion unleashed? Broken from his shackles and out on the hunt once more. Ha! Tensions rose in the court, in my home. Interactions all laced with hidden ambition or subtle warning. The atmosphere was no longer one of welcome, but of hostility. All of Olympus was uneasy. Hera had to come back, to quell this change, to set all right, but also because I missed her. My life was dull without her. Her light, her passion, even her angry. I wished for any of it. I felt her absence everywhere. She had been my fiercest ally, but also my closest friend. Hera, my wife, my love. She had opened sides to me, seen and allowed me to be just Zeus. She alone had understood the weight of the crown. Until recently, we understood one another and the roles we had to play. I cannot live without her. But she had rebelled. The punishment issued to her was one of fairness. She is the one at fault. I cannot be expected to grovel when I committed no fault. She rose against the king. She must return to me. I cannot show weakness to the court, even if she is my wife. With the overwhelming silence on the matter from all around me on the mountain, I sought advice elsewhere. I flew on, and it felt good to have the air on my wings again. The court had been claustrophobic. Up here, I could breathe. I flew to the spot that whispers had said Hera had been staying. Up above the Isle of Euboea, I saw her. I flew under cloud cover to ensure that she would not see me. Hera was as beautiful as ever. The mountainous island also had a fertile plain. It was there she resided. Nymphs gathered with flowers and songs. But my Hera still wore a frown on her face. I could almost feel the waves of anger coming off of her. As I watched, the nymphs set up targets, wooden statues of men. Hera raised her hands up, and each was eviscerated. They erupted into flame and became piles of ash where the targets once stood. She would not listen to me, not in this state. Even our daughters were at her side, Eilithyia and Hebe, trying to ease her mother's pain. I could not go to her, not with the crowd about her. I flew on instead, and still stumped on how to lure her from the isle of her refuge. I followed the clouds across the skies of Greece until we came to the borderland of Boeotia and Attica. To the south there is a mountain range named for the king that reigned there, Cithaeron. The mortals of that time spoke vividly of King Cithaeron's wisdom, for they would come from far and wide to hear his sound advice. His influence would be forgotten by men, but his name remembered for eons to come. I flew above his kingdom as the sun was setting. I dived low, riding the air currents like water, until I found the king's chamber. I flew through the columns and into his room, perching on a chair. The king was alone. An old man with the years he had lived marked upon his skin, deep wrinkles and deep dark eyes, a warm depth to them that spoke of the wisdom he had forged over the years. His private chambers were his alone. Even the servants were not allowed inside. He liked the solitude, for he has so little day to day, busy with running a kingdom that would one day be forgotten. I knew we would not be disturbed here. Cithaeron sat upright in his bed, startled by the flapping of my wings and the flash of light. For I transformed with a flash from an eagle into my own body. He gasped at the sight of me, as all mortals do. I let the shock settle and slowly approached his bed. The elderly king had collected himself and moved to the edge, but then he stopped, for he struggled to stand up. I held out my hand to him, but he hesitated. I told him that if he were as wise as the world believes, he would not let his pride stop him from taking a helping hand. He clasped my hand then and stood with confidence. We walked to the balcony and sat by the wall. The view from the city from above was glorious in the sunset. I waved my hand beside the empty firebowl full of ashes. It burst up in roaring flames as I had reached through time and renewed the fire back to its peak. The old king raised his hands and bathed them in the warmth. I sat opposite him and asked Cithaeron for advice. But he burst out into laughing, which devolved into a hefty cough. I told him then, no man is alone in this world. Men and gods are not solitary creatures. No king is all-knowing. And to lead wisely, one must admit when they are lost. Turning to others is no shame. We guide one another. It is the fool who stumbles blindly on alone, and I am no fool. But Cithaeron explained himself. We gods are so above the mortals, away on our mountain, and with so many years of experience, it seemed laughable that he, a mere mortal, would be able to offer anything new or profound. To that I said, sometimes a king cannot turn to his people, but one king to another. Would he listen to my woes and help me find an answer? The old mortal man said it would be an honor. I told him all about the issues with Hera. Her absence, the precarious place my marriage and now my court was in. We spoke long, and the fire was almost out again when I was done. Starlight lit Cytheron's face as he asked me one question. Do you know if she still loves you? To that, I was left speechless. His voice called out again. Would you like to? My mind had floated to her. Her face when she turned away and left the mountain. But his question brought me straight back to the balcony, and Cytheron laid out a plan. To find out if the Queen still has care for me. If she does not, then none can stop what is coming. But if an inkling of her still cares, then there is hope yet. The king's plan was risky, cunning, sly, and yet simple. Knowing my wife, it was sure to raise her tempers. But if it worked, she would come back to me. All would be right again. I thanked Cytheron, and he rose to bow to me. But as we stood face to face, I offered him something I seldom do to mortals. Dexiosis, to take my right hand. I held it out to him, and he blinked in surprise. Before he brought his old wrinkled hand to mine, we clasped palms and shook. It conveyed my respect and admiration for all his help. I still remember the look in his eyes. As we let go, I transformed once more. The golden flash, and my feathered eagle form was back. I rose in the air and screeched out as I departed the king's company. The sun was beginning to rise, and I flew across the mountain. There I landed, and I called upon my son, Hermes. I explained it all to him, and his smile grew with each word. The mischievous glint that always dances in his eyes grew bigger and brighter. When finished with my tale, we both began to execute the plan conjured by Cytheron. Hermes gathered logs as I set to work carving. I made myself a bullock wagon for the procession, carving at the wood for days until it was perfect. I ordered Hermes to go out amongst the flora and fauna on the mountainside, to speak with the local nymphs, Uriads, and Dryads of the area. They will gather here for the celebration in a few days' time. Then I sent him to the river that flowed on the mountainside, Ascopus. Hermes brought him to our clearing. One of his daughters trailed behind him, a pretty nymph by the name of Platea. They stayed until late in the day, observed my wooden cart and the intricate carvings on the sides. Asopus and Platea both remarked on the decorations we had hung in the grove, the flowers and fabric strung from the trees, all meant to mimic my own flowered wedding to Hera. Hermes and I told the river god and his daughter all. When all was done, they agreed to our plot. The next day, I wrote the invitation neatly on a scroll. Hermes added it to a bag full of empty scrolls that looked just like it, and took to the skies to deliver the wedding invitation to my wife.
I watched the scroll burn to ash. The nymphs around me tried to find the words to soothe me, but there were none. Nothing would ease my anger, all but going there myself. I closed my eyes and transformed myself into the shape of a large peacock. With my wings, I took to the skies. I glided across the distance from the Isle of Euboea, all the way to the mountainside of Kithaeron. My rage summoned dark clouds and a blustering wind. It filled the air of my wings and pushed me quicker through the skies. From the aerial view, I spotted it. A grove adorned with all kinds of flowers, and soft silken fabrics hung from the branches. A sea of nymphs, oreads of the mountains and dryads of the forests were all gathered. They formed a large roaring crowd, and a cheer erupted from the mass, and I turned to the source. Atop a wooden ornate bullock cart being pulled toward the grove, there stood Zeus, a fixed smile on his face, a golden wreath upon his head, and he held the wrist of the woman beside him. A thick veil covered her face, but it must have been Plataea. She stood tall and straight beside him on the cart. Her dress was beautiful, and she was adorned with golden jewelry. Gemstone necklaces that caught the light, and golden bangles hung over her long-sleeved arms. As I watched, the clouds around me became darker and darker. I flew and brought the black mass right above them. It blotted out the sun, and the crowds turned their faces to the skies. A light surrounded me, emanating from my very body. Light of greens and blues, purple edges, almost flame-like, glowed off of me. As I began to descend, I saw the flowers that were chosen. The exact flowers that Zeus and I had at our wedding. The pit in my stomach and the anger that made my skin seem to burn only grew. I screeched out, and the nymphs below wailed with me. I dived through the air and came crashing to the ground. It shuddered and cracked below my feet, and the earth shifted. A shock wave of air knocked the crowd back and to their knees. The flames of light only grew as I spread my wings and screeched. And the earth shook. The nymphs in the crowd closest to me all began to wail and scream. Their minds were in my grasp. My emotions overwhelmed them and drove them mad. They screamed along with me as my bird beak cawed. Shooting stars and comets flew through the blackened skies above and exploded as they hit the area above me. The wind picked up and swirled around me, ripping flowers and fabrics into the skies. In a bright flash of light, all covered their eyes but Zeus, and I transformed. From a screaming bird into a howling goddess. I walked past the collapsed, crying nymphs, and more from the crowd joined them as I drew closer. I walked into the path of the wagon, and Zeus's eyes met mine. I raised my hand and took a fistful of the veil on Plataea's head. I yanked back hard, and it jerked the girl forward, but Zeus's hand steadied her wobble. As the fabric slipped from her face, it burnt into ash before it could hit the ground. But it was not Plataea's face. No nymph or woman at all. It was a statue, carved of wood, and it bore a striking resemblance to me. I stood in shock at the sight of my own face staring back at me. The surrounding crowd stopped too. All the nymphs were silent. The wind was non-existent, and the light around me dimmed. All the chaos that I had brought was halted in its tracks. In the silence, my husband smiled and called out,
"Ah, my wife, so you do still love me."
I am lost. What is happening? Is this not your wedding feast to this common nymph? Zeus let go of the wooden wrist he was holding and offered his hand to me.
This is no wedding, my love. The bride before you was carved by my hand, for I could be wed to none but you. Even my fake bride could wear no face but yours, for it is the only face I have loved with my entire being. I had to know if there was a chance. I had to know if you still cared for me. Your turning up here in a rage is the perfect proof. You're only angry because you do still love me. I did all of this to show you that you matter more to me than all the mortals in the world. Hera, take my hand and join me in this wagon. Do not let the revelries go to waste. Let us renew our vows to one another, given so long ago. Let us come together once more as husband and wife. End your leave of me and come home.
His words melted all the fury I had left. The open hand that I longed for now reached out to me. I felt the rush of love at every breath of his confession. All this, the grove decorated like our wedding, the beauty of the wooden bride, and his honest eyes washed away all my doubts. My fears and hurts were not gone, but overwhelmed. Zeus, I could never resist him. There has always been this heavy magnetic pull. He is mine and I am his. It is how it has been and always will be. The Isle of Euboea, away from the court, was pretty, but so dull. Life somehow felt black and white without him. Staring into his eyes, the same eyes I saw when I was first freed from Kronos, I could not help but feel it all come rushing back. All the feelings of our youth and his eyes on me brought the world back into vivid colour. My love for him was renewed with this strange plot to lure me here. He was right. I was jealous. I loved him and wanted no other to have him. But none can really know him as I do. None can love him as I do. And none but Zeus can love me as I need. But I hesitated. I looked down and tried to clear my head to think. Then I saw it. The intricate carvings on the wooden cart. They were of us. Our lives and memories together. The crowds around me were silent, and Zeus did naught but watch me as I circled him. I was staring at the carvings, images of our first meeting from his eyes, the long nights in caves and camping on mountainsides, where we would talk and watch the stars until dawn, huddled away in our fortress during the war, the comfort I took in his arms, and the fear that he managed to chase away. When we first came to Olympus, our wedding, our children, us in beautiful detail. His passion and persistence. It was awe-inspiring. I looked up at my Zeus, and for that moment there was no King Zeus and Queen Hera. Just Zeus and Hera. No weight of the world, but two beings reaching out to one another. I could not help but take his hand. I pushed the fake bride from out of the wagon and took my place beside Zeus. He held my hand and cupped my cheek, and we kissed. The crowd of nymphs around us cheered and the procession began again. We were pulled up the mountain and further into the grove until we came to the tables laid out with a feast. We spoke our vows again, the ones we made so long ago, his hand in mine, I was caught in his intense gaze, my fears and doubts all washed away. We celebrated on that mountain for days. And when the time came, we travelled back home together. As the marble doors to the throne room were thrown open, all turned to look at us. The gods and goddesses of the court all bowed as we passed them and made our way to the thrones. When we sat back in our proper places, the whole room broke out in applause and cheers. The court had missed their rulers. They had missed me. For a time, Zeus and I were like young lovers again. Our separation was reconciled and all was well. The people of that mountainside still hold festivities for that faithful event. In a celebration called the Daedala, Zeus stayed, but he would always have his appetites. And I do not punish him for it, but I punish the women, the illegitimate bastards that come. This is our agreement. I take out my anger on them. It is too hard to hold anger for him. He has always had a hold on my heart. This was the only time I ever left Zeus. But the women he has been with, the bastards he has spawned, and my own plots and plans against them, are tales for another time.